I was inspired to make a toy tractor based on the old Porsche diesel design, which was made in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. It's a very simple shape where the form is just a body, a rear axle, and 4 wheels. And there isn't a whole lot hanging off of it or sticking out of it. So my design with wood was a body, 2 axles with a rear axle holder, and 4 wheels, 2 big rear wheels and 2 front wheels, and a steering wheel. I will start with a body shape that will hold all the pieces together. To start this, I'll make a warped piece of cherry that I have very flat and straight so I can cut out the pattern that I've made. And I simply glue this down and cut it off and then cut it out. And this wants to be fairly close to the pattern. The closer I can cut it out, the less sanding I'll have to do. And we'll sand. We'll do the outside radiuses and the faces on the disc sander, and then the inside faces on the little scroll sander. And we need to drill out the hole for the front axle. I had to buy a 11/16 drill bit to be just slightly larger than my 5/8 inch axles. And then some hand sanding. Next we'll do the rear wheels. I have a chunk of walnut that will work for this. It will help if I cut it down to approximately the right size. So I'll draw the circle that I'll turn on the lathe, and then I'll cut the corners that I won't need off on the bandsaw. This will really speed up the wood turning. I was lucky that the largest jaws on my chuck will actually fit this diameter, so that made it easy to hold on the lathe. And it's a matter of turning this into a cylinder. And then from a cylinder to start shaping the wheels. And I think out of this I'll start by making 4. And then rather than trying to cut those off on the lathe, I'll just cut them off with the bandsaw. And then I'll have 4 discs that I can make into wheels. I can hold the wheels with the big jumbo jaws. I found that the jumbo jaws worked initially, but the wheels had a tendency of falling out. So I drilled a hole smaller than the axle hole, but large enough to fit in my screw chuck. And that worked much better. And it also didn't have the giant spinning jaw plates right next to where I was trying to turn. And then a little sanding on each one, and then drilling out the hole for the axle to glue into, which is on the same side for the hole as the screw chuck. So I had to hold the wheel with the jumbo jaws again, because I couldn't hold it in the screw chuck because I didn't want a hole on the outside of the wheel. Next we'll do the little wheels in the front. So I have to cut a smaller piece of walnut for that. Best push stick design ever. Even lets you push small pieces through the table saw, which isn't the safest thing in the world to do. And on this we'll just use a drive center, so I actually cut some slots in the end to hold the center in place, or to give the center something to bite into. And this is a little long, so I cut it off. And then I can just work on each wheel on the end. So I made 2 out of this one, and I just cut them off. These went pretty fast. They're small. It's just more delicate, finicky, fussy work. I made some little wood shims for the chuck so that the wheel wouldn't get any marks on it when I held it in the chuck. And then I could work on the back side of the wheel and drill the hole for the axle and clean up the back side of the wheel. The next thing to make is the axle housing for the rear wheels. This is the differential ball that you see on the back of tractors and trucks, and I think it's sort of an iconic look. It helps make it read a little more like a machine. After turning the shape, I have to cut a flat spot on the differential ball, make a place for it to glue to the body of the tractor. And I found I had to add a little scrap piece of blocking to the cylinder so it wouldn't roll around as I cut that flat spot on the radial arm saw. I also had to drill a long hole through the axle holder to hold the axle. Next is the steering wheel, which is very fine work because it's so small. At first I was making it too big, and I really had to cut it down to make it the right size. To drill the hole for it, cut it off. And then I put it between a drill bit and the live center just to spin it enough so I could sand the back of it, make it a little smoother. And I left a little tail on the back that would help hold it away from the dashboard on the body. Next, I've glued the axle housing to the body, and I'll put finish on it now so that I can get to the places that are behind the wheels once the wheels are glued on. We'll assemble the rest of the tractor. I just put glue into the axle holes in the wheels, put the wheels on, and then clamp them together, and that seemed to work. Not too tight. And the last thing was to add the steering wheel, so I had to drill a hole. I didn't plan for the seat being in the way of where my drill bit was going to be, so I had to find a really long drill bit to be able to get the angle on the screw right. And then I have to make sure that's not too tight so the wheel will turn. And next it's playtime.
Is this person on the tractor? Yeah. Oh, great! I'm just going to drive him right over. Now he got smushed. And Wendy fell on. That's her name. And they'll walk into the tractor and they'll walk. And then Spud will look out for bad guys. Well, Wendy drives it. Ooh, here we go! Wow! Now, goodbye! Goodbye, everybody! The movie has ended. Cassie, here is Spud. He is going to stand right here. While this is fine. And then Wendy has to hop back on, and then Spud has to hop in the front. And they roam around the town, and they roam around the town. And they roam around the town.